All right.
Hi, everyone. Good morning and welcome to First Things First. The gang's all back together. Nothing makes me happier. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's 1/3 of the gang. Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This right here is Nick Wright. Go ahead, say something pithy you were about.
No, not at all. I echo your sentiments. Glad to have everybody back here.
Good stuff. Well, we got a great show today. A lot to get to. The Rams guaranteed quarterback Jared Goff a boatload of money. Aaron Rodgers has regained his freedom over the Packers offense. And the hottest place to be last night was at the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. Ezekiel Elliott has officially returned from his holdout vacation in Cabo, and his itinerary was clearly made public. Cameras were ready to take in Zeke coming off the plane. Zeke looked well-rested. Zeke looked slimmed down. Zeke seemed ready to get paid. With him back in Dallas, his agent says the deal is, quote, very close. As far as the All-Pro running back being ready to hit the ground running week 1 when the Cowboys face the Giants, just ask Zeke himself.
Are you ready to join the team, buddy? I've been ready. Yeah.
All right, CC, let's start with you. All signs pointing to this getting done, maybe by today when the game plan goes into place with the Cowboys. What was your reaction to everything that went down yesterday?
Well, one of the things that Zeke did, at the beginning, people said, well, why is he going to Cabo? I thought going to Cabo, being out of the continental USA, where he's not going to places and people are asking him questions. He's not in some night spot and people are, well, why aren't you in training camp and those types of things. I think that those things have really benefited him because he hadn't really said anything. And I think that Jerry and the Dallas organization, like this could have been a red hot button issue. But Zeke, because he took the approach, every time Jerry, his son Steven, said something, he didn't respond to that and try to fight it in the media. He had a couple things released to people in the media that he knew. He's been in Cabo training, and I believe that because he was silent and because the way he went about business, he knew going forward, him and Jerry Jones are business partners. And to me, he went about it the right way. He gave him a warning in February. All right, I want a new contract, and if you guys don't do it, you go through the draft, and they don't draft someone in the first or second round, you know that you pretty much have leverage, given the unbelievable 3 seasons since he's come out of Ohio State. So he had unbelievable leverage. He pushed them to the edge. They will get a deal done before week number 1. So all things point to this worked out for Zeke. Now, Jerry is trying to get him at a price. He knew he was going to sign him. But can I get him a little bit lower than what he wants, which allows me to spend more on the rest of this football team so we can put a championship team on the field? But Ezekiel Elliott did the right things, getting out, not speaking about it. Glad to see him coming back. He'll definitely be there week number 1.
And it looks like Zeke is going to win this battle in almost every way possible. I would be shocked when the numbers come out, when they come to a deal, if he doesn't become the highest paid per year running back ever, the most guaranteed money ever, and not that it totally matters, but the most full potential money on a contract ever for anyone at his position. And he's going to do it without missing time, I would imagine, and to Chris's point, without having, I think, people turn on him because of a back and forth, because that was the first time we've seen new video of Ezekiel Elliott in months, because he did leave the country and because nobody was sending reporters down to Cabo to track him down.
And he stayed out of the public eye, which was clearly important to his side.
Exactly right. And so I think Zeke had the leverage. He had the leverage of what the Cowboys' plan was this offseason, which was not to remake their roster. The Cowboys made a conscious decision. Yeah, they're going to add Robert Quinn and Randall Cobb and lure Jason Witten out of retirement, but those are tertiary moves. Their decision was very clearly, we are going to take the team we had last season, particularly the team we had the final half of last season, and run it back. Well, Zeke knew and is correct in believing he was the most important part of this. I think the Cowboys underestimated Zeke's stomach to potentially miss time.
Right.
Because if they knew this was going to get done at these figures that'll be released in the next, I would guess, 12 hours, maybe in the next 2 hours, this could have gotten done 2 weeks ago.
Sure.
But I think they thought he was going to maybe show back up when they weren't this close. He did not, and he's going to win this negotiation.
So, Nick, you said you think Zeke won in every way possible. The only way he probably doesn't win if this just isn't enough time to get him football ready for week 1. I know the game game plan, like we mentioned, goes in today. Is there concern that, yes, he's physically ready, but is he contact ready for week 1? And how much do you think he'll be able to contribute?
Well, this is the thing. He's not going to be ready. All right? He's not ready to play a football game, but because of the situation, yes, he's going to play. I remember when I came out of retirement, I think it was after 6 weeks in the season. The Dolphins had a big Monday night game. They lost 3 receivers in a short period of time. They called me. It was one of the free agent visits I had that previous offseason. But I was working on HBO. I was already moved on to my career. And they were like, we have a bye week next week. We got 2 weeks before we play Green Bay. You know what I said? Oh, that's not enough time. Oh, that's plenty of time. But for me, I disrespected the whole process. And this is the way my process started. And that's how I played 16 years in the league. When the month of March came, that gave me 6 weeks to get ready for training camp. Ready for mini camp. After mini camp, I had another 6 weeks to get ready for training camp. And then I had 6 weeks of training camp. I played 16 NFL seasons. 14 times I went to training camp. All right? Not my first year because I was drafted in the summer, and not my last year. But of those 14 years, I only missed games in 2 years after going to training camp. That was with a broken collarbone, which couldn't be prevented, and a high ankle sprain, which couldn't be prevented. So to think that training for the season, for training camp, get you ready for the season, for me to be sitting here, that's a flat-out lie. Do all the doctors, do all the players, do all the coaches point to the first week of the season? It's amazing how all those timelines add up. Well, Zeke's back from Cabo. Is he ready week 1? Yes. Well, what about DeMarcus Lawrence? He tore up his shoulder this offseason. He had surgery. Is he ready week 1? Yes.
Tyrone Crawford, same thing. Everybody heals right in time to be ready for week 1.
It's just talk. But real football players will tell you, training camp is very, very important. Being there 2-a-days is very, very important. Will he play week number 1? Yes. But is he ready as he was his rookie season? Nope. Year number 2? Nope. Last year? Nope. But he's going to play, and that's because he had to get the business side of it handled.
So, Nick, how do you think they use him then if he's not going to be completely ready to give them his 100%?
Oh,
No, that's just I'm just telling y'all real. Okay? They're going to put in the game plan, and he's getting ready to earn that money come Sunday.
I think he'll have...
But he'll be on a rep count,
I think he'll have a minimum of 15 touches. I would be shocked if he gets to 30, which he could at any other game during the regular season. So I think he will be on a almost break glass in case of emergency. They would like to have him on a rep count. They would like to be very judicious with his touches. My guess is early in the game they will be. And if the Giants, given their defense, given their quarterback situation, given their non-existent receiving core for the beginning of the season, are as bad as many people anticipate them to be, then they will be able to stay true to that rep count. But I mean, I'm old enough to remember Kevin Durant in Game 5 of the NBA Finals saying he's going to play in short bursts. And then he played in 9 of the first 11 minutes. Why? Because he was playing great. Things were going well. And so those things can go out the window. But the reason that I said he won in every way possible, while acknowledging he's not going to be, I think, himself, full Ezekiel Elliott until week 3 at the earliest, is because that's more of a Cowboys concern than an Ezekiel Elliott concern. Zeke's first, second, and third priority this offseason was to secure the bag, and he did it. I mean, it's not done yet, but we're just waiting. There's a poker hand where everyone knows one person's folding, and they're just waiting for the cameras.
Even if he gets hurt, he's still getting paid.
Everyone knows that Zeke is about to become the highest paid running back ever. That was his prerogative. That was his objective. He jumped the line to do it, and it's as if those off-the-field issues never happened. It's as if he had no trips to the principal's office, no suspensions, because he's getting the Todd Gurley treatment on the same Todd Gurley timeline despite having red flags Todd Gurley did not.
I totally disagree with you. That's the reason why he had to hold out, and that's because of the offseason. This was a slam dunk. He's the best player on Jerry Jones' team. And Jerry, through his history, man, he's been consistent. He pays his best players. But because of that became the dispute. That's why they really tried to zero in on Le'Veon Bell. He reset the market. They didn't just say that for a reason. The only reason why they could say that was because they knew they had a better running back, but because L. Bell had some issues off the field. Zeke had some issues off the field. That's how their careers became compatible. And that was Jerry's negotiating tool that he wanted to use. And talking to people around the NFL, there's no way that you can look at these guys' contract and think, wow, there's a chance that if during the duration of this contract that they're going to miss time. Ezekiel Elliott won in this because he will never, ever have leverage like he had in this situation. He'll never be at this point in his career. He'll never have youth on his side. He'll never have the inexperienced quarterback in Dak and everyone depending on him. So that's the reason why he won and why he had to be able to do it. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's his last contract. It's his last significant contract,
right.
Definitely. So he did what he had to do, but he did jeopardize his overall health in the first month of the season because missing training camp does not set you up to try to have the type of seasons that we expect Ezekiel Elliott to have the next several years.
All right, Ezekiel Elliott is back in Dallas, which means a contract is oh so close between him and the Dallas Cowboys. Take a break coming up. Can a well-paid Jared Goff lead the Rams back to the Super Bowl? That's next on FS1. You can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel. It's on SiriusXM. We'll be right back. Are you ready for what's ahead? You can't always predict the future, but you can game plan for it. Generations of families and businesses have harnessed the power of Pacific to help them reach their unique goals. Whether you need to save money to meet your needs, ensure your family is protected, or make sure you don't run out of money, Pacific Life has a variety of financial solutions that can help. Pacific Life counts more than half of the 100 largest U.S. companies as its clients and has been named one of the 2019 world's most ethical companies by the Ethisphere Institute. Protecting what matters most to people for 150 years and counting, that's the power of Pacific. Ask a financial professional about how Pacific Life can help you game plan for your future, or visit www.pacificlife.com. Welcome back. We'll get to Jared Goff in a second. But first, Bucknell's Brandon Sanders sees double coverage, but just needs one hand to reel this in.
Oh, this was great right here. Threw it in his lead glove.
In stride, too. That's a wonderful play.
Okay, Bucknell.
Lehigh Mountain Hawks, Alex Snyder going over the middle, lays out for a one-handed snag.
And you guys think these guys it's their hands or it's the equipment?
Here we go.
Here we go.
No, you guys tell me.
Because
act like I'm not here.
Even at Lehigh, act like you're not here. Okay, this is what I would say. If Cris Carter were here, he'd be talking about those gloves, not the great play.
Here at CFL action, Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Johnny Augustine gets in the open field, showing off the sweet feet.
I got a nephew who plays for Saskatchewan. They're having a good season. They're in the green. Ain't a whole bunch of tackling going on here up here in the CFL. As you can see, the benefit of that wide sideline, it does help.
Your nephew that plays for the Saskatchewan, that's the one Jenna challenged to a fitness competition a couple years ago, correct? Confirmed? Yeah. Young pro athlete.
I didn't know he was a pro athlete when I did that.
That's
On
all
to
we
the
do
Rams
is produce
now.
pro athletes, the Cardinals.
Hey,
That's all we got.
You guys remember when Jared Goff was going to start the season without a new contract extension? Yeah, that was called yesterday. Today, Goff's a rich man. The former #1 overall pick agreed to terms on a 4-year, $134 million contract extension, locking him up through 2024. That's with a record-setting $110 million guaranteed. Goff took the Rams to the Super Bowl last year, and he's now reaping the rewards. See, what do you make of the Rams' investment in Jared Goff?
Good. I'm glad for him. He deserves the contract. He's played exceptional football the last 2 years, especially during the regular season. It's been the tale of one season, and then they get Sean McVay. And that opened up his ability to be able to throw the ball. I believe he's only going to get better. He's undersized as a quarterback as far as his frame and height, but he's one of those kind of throwers like Drew Brees. As he gets older, his arm strength will increase. So for me, I'm very, very happy for him. They had to do this. They've already extended the coach. They've already extended the general manager. And the last year, what have they done? They gave Todd Gurley. They gave Aaron Donald. This is the last piece. This is the cornerstone of their franchise. Those three players, that general manager, and that head coach, they have decided we're all going to walk in unison. So I'm very, very happy for him and the way the Eagles when the Eagles came up with Carson Wentz's deal, it just forced at the Rams. I don't know what type of timetable they're on. I don't know, did they think it was going to happen before the season? That kind of forced their hand. Dak Prescott, I'll be shocked if he takes a snap on Sunday with Dallas at 4 o'clock Eastern time and he doesn't have a new contract.
Agreed.
This is part of doing business. Like, you cannot allow these quarterbacks to go out there and jeopardize their overall health. And if he's your franchise quarterback, and I was talking to Nick about this morning, I don't care what your definition of a franchise quarterback is. For the Rams, Jared Goff is that. So to me, it's not a matter of question of, is the guy a franchise quarterback in your eyes? No, what does the team think? Everyone's not going to be an elite thrower, not going to be an elite passer.
You can't compare skills between Wentz and Goff and Dak. It's about what he means to the actual Rams.
I'm going to try to avoid that because it's not fair. What we start doing now is we start evaluating the quarterbacks based on their price tag. Well, Kirk Cousins, do you like him as a quarterback? Yeah, but you like him for $28 million guaranteed? Not so. But this is the price of doing business in the league, and we should be comfortable with these guys making this type of money. To me, Jared Goff earned it, took his team to the Super Bowl last year. Is he supposed to improve? Do I plan on him improving? Absolutely, I do. But him and Sean McVay going forward, I believe, is the right thing for the Rams, and I believe that their future continues to be bright.
We say all the time, you can lie a lot of ways in pro sports. One way you cannot lie those through your actions, and this action answers any question whatsoever. How sold are the Rams on Goff? Because when they were asked about the contract a few months ago and the general manager said that's not something we're worried about this offseason, when you saw the number 2 pick of the draft who hasn't played in a playoff game get a deal and Goff still waiting on a deal, when there was speculation about, well, how much is it McVay? How much is it Goff? What about how much can we just totally throw out his rookie season where number 1 pick or number 31 pick was just horrendous? But they answered all those questions. They made it very clear. We believe he is a huge part of our success. We believe that what he's done since McVay's gotten there, which is those 2 seasons averaging 4,200 yards, 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, a 101 rating, and maybe most importantly, at least I know to Cris, the team has averaged 12 wins per season. That they want this guy as their quarterback moving forward. So on the money, if Wentz got 32, he gets a tick above it, $33.5 million. I'm very curious to see how the guarantees are actually structured. Is it really 110 truly guaranteed, or is it more like 75 guaranteed with partial guarantees on the back end? But either way, they have now decided Jared Goff's going to be their guy. There was speculation, not just from me. Could the Rams be a team that would, if they thought it was more system and coach, that wouldn't pay a quarterback, that would go on the revolving rookie quarterback contract where let him play 5 years, franchise tag him, and then try to bring in the new quarterback that they could then keep players like Gurley, Donald, Brandon Cooks, go all in as they did last year? The answer is unequivocally no, and if they're not going to do it, no one's probably going to do that, even if there's some speculation if that could be a good way to build a team. And one last point, because I'm not as sold on Goff as other people.
And you haven't been.
And one of the reasons is because I do wonder how much of it is the coach. And a point that was made to me last night, right after this contract was signed, I think it's a smart one, is in this specific instance, how much does that matter? Because Goff and the coach are now tied at the hip. Goff's not going to be playing quarterback for them without Sean McVay as his head coach. So even if it is that McVay is unlocking something in Goff, another coach wouldn't, that holding that against Goff when McVay is locked in with an extension doesn't make a ton of sense for the Rams. So I get why for the Rams they feel, especially after going to the Super Bowl, they were going to do this. I am a little surprised they did it given some of their offseason comments leading up to this.
So now that they're all locked up and you have Aaron Donald, you have Todd Gurley, you have Jared Goff, what are your expectations for the Rams this season?
I expect him to continue to improve as a quarterback. I expect them to win their division. I expect them to be in the playoffs. I expect him to lead his team to the playoffs for 3 straight years. I believe he's more than competent. I believe he's only going to get better throwing the football. Nick made a point that he thought it was the coach. Well, when Cooper Kupp got hurt, what did the coach do? Why didn't the coach come up with something if it was the coach? Because I've seen guys do this. Quarterbacks that we necessarily don't understand, or they don't have the intangibles, overall arm strength that some of the other guys. If the coach is good, we give the coach the credit. I remember Donovan McNabb in Philadelphia. Oh, man, Andy Reid unlocked his talent. Andy Reid. Donovan McNabb should get some credit. Tom Brady, first half of his career. They said the same thing they were saying about McVay. Oh, it's the coach. It's the coach. Where it comes out that Tom Brady had something to do with that. And I just think that we get into this evaluation of young players, and it becomes hard. Yeah, every good player would love a great coach, but that's not necessarily going to happen. So for me, he's a talented thrower. That's why he was the first pick in the draft. That's how you're able to win that many games offensively. If he was a defensive-minded coach and they were winning like Tony Dungy, I've been like, I'll give him all the credit. But Sean McVay hadn't thrown one pass in the league. You can design everything you want to, but you need a trigger man, and I believe that they have that in Goff.
Your point about Cooper Kupp and the numbers, we can show them to you, are jarring. That was to me the line of demarcation in their season, even more than the Gurley injury.
Yeah.
The left side
did his IQ go down 40 points when Cooper Kupp got hurt?
Well, so the left, just so people understand what they're saying, is he got hurt week 10. Week 11, Jared Goff was a different player. And your point that did Sean McVay all of a sudden get worse? Okay, but the same can be applied to Jared Goff. And one of my pieces of skepticism is if you are only highly successful with all of the pieces in place, with the all-pro running back, with, I think, the best, most diverse talent of wide receivers, Brandon Cooks, deep threat, Robert Woods, kind of do-everything guy, Cooper Kupp, ideal slot receiver, then are you a guy that you want to tie yourself to for the next 5, 6, 7 years? The Rams answered unequivocally yes. As far as expectations, this is, I think, the one division in football Cris and I have the biggest disagreement on. He has the Rams winning it. I don't want to say comfortably, but I think you think pretty comfortably that they are clearly.
Well, I just think the Rams are going to win it. I think that's important. If they finish one game ahead of Seattle,
whatever it is, you think that they're the best team in the division. I think Seattle's going to win the division. I think the Rams are going to go from the Super Bowl to out of the playoffs. So that's probably one of the reasons we felt a little differently when we saw this contract, when we saw that the Rams were connected to Jared Goff moving forward. But it shouldn't come as a surprise because he was the number one pick. They did go to the Super Bowl last year. That is the player, if he's your quarterback in those circumstances, that almost always in NFL history has been extended.
One reason why I would go forward with Goff, because I believe he'll be far more aggressive once he gets this contract throwing the ball. That's what Sean McVay is trying to do. But if he's not your franchise quarterback, how do you get one? So I allow him to play 2 more years. And then what do? I go back into the draft and do the same thing that I did before.
Right.
I watch college football. There ain't no college quarterback out there until Sunshine come from Clemson, my man Lawrence, in 2 years.
That's
like
no doubt.
that I would be like, okay, I'm ready to go back into that draft and try to duplicate what I think I already have in Goff. So to me, I believe he's a better passer than people give him credit because he's with the little baby genius.
All right, Wentz is signed, Goff is signed. Could Dak be next? Take a break. Coming up, Ezekiel Elliott is back in Dallas. Some news to report ahead on First Things First. Hey guys, this is Jenna Wolfe. I'm here to tell you about Noom. Some people think that all diet and weight loss plans are the same, but that's because they haven't tried Noom. Noom is a new, totally different approach to losing weight and getting healthy that uses psychology and small goals to help you change your habits, making it easy to lose the weight and keep it off for good. Noom combines the power of technology with real human support, offering as little or as much help as you want along the way. And since Noom is an app, it's always with you and easy to use, which makes it super easy to stay on track and reach your goals. It's just as simple to get started. Go online, answer a few quick questions, and they'll create a personalized program just for you. Noom can help you lose your old way of thinking about food and dieting. So what do you have to lose? Visit Noom.com/podcast, Noom.com/podcast, and start your 14-day trial today. Change your habits, change your mind, change for good with Noom. Back here, First Things First, we have some breaking news to report. The much-anticipated breaking news, according to Ian Rappaport, Ezekiel Elliott has agreed to a 6-year, $90 million extension. He now becomes the highest-paid running back in the NFL, with about half of his deal guaranteed. All right, CC, we all expected this to happen when Ezekiel Elliott got on that flight back from Cabo yesterday, landing in Dallas. What is your reaction to the deal he now received?
Happy for him. Happy they're able to get their season underway with the full complement of players. He deserved that deal. I think he went about the right way, kept his mouth quiet, went to Cabo. Even if I would have decided to do something different, I believe that at the end result, he stayed there. You know, you're not going to have sound bites of him. He wasn't out places eating. He wasn't out places hanging out. And I believe that Jerry and the Cowboys organization, they respected that because he wasn't throwing that back in their face. But given the 3 seasons that he's played, the way he's run the ball, the way this organization is dependent upon his ability to be able to run it between the tackles for 20 to 25 carries, his overall durability, him as a blocker, pass protection pickup, hands out of the backfield. He's a complete running back. He has lived up to every expectations. When you have those kids on the draft board, you see them, okay, this is what they did in college. What's their potential if I get them to the league? And people forget, when they drafted him, running backs were on their way out in the NFL. Is a superstar worth it? Is a high draft pick worth it? Dallas said yes. If you happen to get one that's special, he is worth it. That's what the Rams had done the previous seasons in getting Todd Gurley, and it continues the precedent of that's why the Jets went out and got L. Bell. That's why the Giants have Barkley. That's why the Carolina, they have McCaffrey there. Like, there's still a contingent in the NFL that believes, man, if you got a stud and he runs the ball, it's okay for him to be a high draft pick and for you to be able to pay him a lot of money. Also, I believe that there's an obligation positional-wise that the guy who is the best and has the most leverage, he needs to leverage that not only for himself, but for the other running backs that come after him. They've done that for years in the league, and it's a matter of point. Michael Thomas did the same thing in New Orleans. Is he the best receiver in the league? Don't matter. It's my turn right now, and I'm getting ready to make this thing tick to 20 million. That's what he did. Next guy is going to get 21. Zeke's able to do the same thing, getting 15 million a year.
And Zeke got everything he wanted. And he's, according to Todd Archer just moments ago, he's going to be at practice today. So he's going to be able to play week 1. Cris had said this thing, you got to be at the Wednesday practice. You said that a week ago. He's going to be at the Wednesday practice.
That's when the game plan goes in for
Deadlines
Sunday.
Create deals. The Cowboys clearly had an artificial deadline in their head, which was, man, we're going to have the game plan installed. We're going to have our first full day of practice like a regular NFL week this Wednesday. Need Zeke here. And Zeke gets more money per year than Todd Gurley, $15 million per year. Way more money guaranteed, if Rappaport's correct, at around $45 million guaranteed, when Gurley's guaranteed at signing was $22 million. Now, people will look at the $90 million. Those last couple years on the deal are essentially going to be team options. So that's not relevant to this so much, but he got everything he wanted. He reset the running back marketplace. And Chris's point on what this means for the other backs, yeah, man, Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, they needed a deal like this. So it wasn't just, the one guy who got paid before his rookie deal was Todd Gurley, and then a year into the contract, he's got an arthritic knee. That would have been a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
And by the way, those guys are pretty damn invested, too, in Zeke actually being really good again.
Of course.
Because you don't want it to be Gurley got paid, and then his knee flares up. Zeke gets paid. He's not the same guy. Not that I would anticipate that happening. But I understand where the NFL is on running backs. I understand the belief that a guy like Melvin Gordon, even a first-round pick, averages around 1,000 yards per season, that a guy like that can be thought of as replaceable. But the very best in the league, the top 4 or 5 guys, to me, are still highly valuable, and you're seeing them being compensated as such.
So what impact, then, did all of this, if any, have on the Dallas Cowboys? The holdout, the wanting to get paid, wanting to be the highest-paid player 2 years before your deal was up. What impact did it have on the Cowboys?
It's going to cost them a couple young players. It's going to cost them guys they want to keep on this team, guys that if you're trying to compete for Super Bowl, you need talented players. But the pie, it got a lot smaller. Reportedly, before he started signing these extensions, Dallas had $25 million remaining this year, reported $75 million next year. So Jerry's got the money. But ultimately, the money, every slice of the pie you give up. So eventually, will they be able to sign some of their other defensive free agents? And it's some guys on that offensive line in the next year or two, they're going to have to take a pay cut. Jerry's going to come to them and be like, listen, buddy, Tyron Smith, let me talk to you, all right? Right now, what you're making, I don't consider you to be the premier left tackle. I need an adjustment. So Travis Frederick got injured last year, missed all of last season. Am I going to continue to pay him? Like, it's on the board if he doesn't get back to the level. So that's what happens. You lose younger players, and then there's some other veteran players going to have to take a haircut, or they're going to have to leave the Dallas Cowboys.
Is Dak Prescott going to be one of those players? How does this contract affect Dak?
Well, I think I said it yesterday, and Cris has been echoing it for quite some time. It would be shocking if Dak takes the field on Sunday without a new deal. No matter what the Cowboys' last best offer is to Dak before they close negotiations before the start of the regular season, to me it would be almost agent malpractice to not recommend you have to take it. We've gotten this as high as we can because it is such a violent game. Even though they're protecting quarterbacks, there are still devastating injuries. We saw what happened to Alex Smith,
right,
and Dak's never gotten any real money. If Jared Goff just got $110 million guaranteed, even if the offer to Dak is $80 million guaranteed, and even if the Jared Goff just set the market at $33.5 million, or at least not set the market, but he got $33.5 million,
right,
even if the offer to Dak is more like Carson Wentz's, not close to 40, it would be such a gamble for him as a human being to not take that money before he goes and plays another game. I think this probably doesn't actually impact Dak's money that much because let's say they had carved out for Zeke $12.5 million, and now it's $15 million. I don't think that 2.5 is going to come out of Dak's slice of the pie.
Yeah.
I think that 2.5 is maybe going to come out of what they have for Byron Jones this offseason, what they have for, you were mentioning, a veteran offensive lineman if they ask him to take a pay cut. Dak's going to get paid, and it would be shocking to me if he does not get paid before the start of the season because of the risk he would be assuming by not signing the contract before the start of the season.
All right, that's what it means for Dak financially, but what about on the field? How does signing and getting Ezekiel Elliott back in there, what does that do for Dak come Sunday?
Well, it gives their offense. People aren't talking about it, but they got a new offensive coordinator who's never called a play in Kellen Moore. All right, I know Jerry Jones has liked him for a long time, even when he was on the roster briefly there in Dallas. So now he's got an opportunity. They got a new quarterback coach in John Kitna. It gives John Kitna an opportunity to be able to coach Dak with the full complement of Amari Cooper, even though he might be a little injured, a little gimpy, but Ezekiel Elliott. So now putting in the game plan, my quarterback has a chance to be successful. And I believe Dallas is going to surprise the Giants by how many times they throw the ball, how many times they go down the field initially early in the game, especially with play action. Everyone, the Giants are reading it. They know Ezekiel Elliott is coming back today. You know what I would do? Heavy play action. I fake Zeke into the line of scrimmage, give me some easy chunks on the outside. So if I'm Dak, regardless of what the offer is, I know Amari is straight for the future. They can put the franchise tag on him, and Amari has pretty much said so. Now they got Zeke. If I'm Dak, I'm going right in there because Jerry said this a couple weeks ago. There have been competent offers to all parties. So I knew Zeke had an offer of $14 million in front of him. He just didn't like how the money was stacked. So he got it to 15, got the money stacked a little bit different, and there's a contract in front of Dak today. He can sign it if he wants to. I believe he's more likely to sign it now that I got number 21 because Dak's a smart guy. He's a good leader, and he realized I don't want to play any more football in my career without number 21 in the backfield.
And what it means for Dak, what it means for the team is they are now, to me, a fringe, bottom of the fringe, but a fringe Super Bowl contender. Without Zeke, to me, they were a fringe playoff contender. That's why they couldn't suffer this holdout lasting weeks into the season. That's why, to me, the Giants game became a losable game without Ezekiel Elliott. I know it's the NFL, any game's a losable game, but at this point, I'd be shocked with Zeke in the fold, even if he only touches the ball 15 times, because the defense has to account for him every time he's on the field. Dak has easier throwing lanes every time he's on the field. Amari and Randall Cobb and Jason Witten's job is easier, or at least a little bit, every time he's on the field. And as more news trickles in, it's now being reported that the guaranteed money is $50 million. That much more so than Lev got 13 a year, Gurley got 14, Zeke gets 15. The guaranteed money is totally market resetting for the position and the most important figure in any contract.
That number's a little distorted because he got $13 million he's making the next 2 years. So that money's already guaranteed. So if I add that to the guarantees that they have, so you have to kind of...
So $37 million, according to the reports, of new guaranteed money, which still is trumps anything that has happened. But you're right. He already had this year's salary and next year's salary locked in.
All right, much more on this coming up. But wouldn't it be great to talk about this with Cowboys all-time sack leader DeMarcus Ware? Back here, first things first, and we have some breaking news. According to Ian Rappaport, Ezekiel Elliott has agreed to a 6-year, $90 million extension. With $50 million guaranteed, he becomes the highest-paid running back in the NFL. Zeke will report to Cowboys practice today, so who better to talk about Zeke than Cowboys all-time sack leader DeMarcus Ware. Hey, DeMarcus, thanks so much
How are you doing?
being with us.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. We don't get that very often.
I've been in Florida. I was battling a hurricane. Man, you came in the door. Man, I had a little hangover. I'm ready now.
It's so good. Man, it was so good. Cold when I came in.
Man, it's really nice. I mean, I saw them this morning, but
thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for taking the time, and a perfect day for you to be on the show. Given all this breaking news.
We might as well start with your reaction to Zeke getting signed. He's back, and he's ready to go for the Cowboys.
I think the first thing I thought about was yes, because I feel like that's a great, person to have back with Dak. Because, we're talking about the contracts. He missed training camp, and it's like, okay, now we have our guy back who's going to be able to move the chains. And that's what everything's about. I just wonder, is he going to play a first full game?
Well, and so the latest reports are he's going to be at practice today because they want him to be able to play that first full game. So let's assume for the time being he's on the 47-man active roster for the first game and he does play. Cris has been adamant about this, and every other...
What do I know?
And every former player that we've had sitting
You know a little bit about football.
I try to tell them.
He tries to tell us all the time. And every other former player we've had sit in that seat has talked about the importance of the contact of training camp, the importance of whatever he was doing cardio-wise in Cabo was one thing, but the actual physicality of football. So, having played as long as you did and at as high of a level as you played, what version of Zeke will we see early? How much did he miss by not being in training camp and not playing in the preseason?
I think we're going to see a half of Zeke. Now, and talking about he's not going to be able to play a full game. And one thing that Bill Parcells always told me, I want you guys battle hardened. That means that you're going to go through OTAs with the pads, training camp with the pads, and now your body's going to be ready for that type of impact. But I know you've been in Cabo, so it's like, okay, well, then how much can you play? And I heard you talking earlier about he still is a threat on the football field.
Yes.
Can he now just hand it off to Zeke a little bit, now go do a little bit of play action?
Yes, absolutely.
And now you can beat guys deep down the field because you still have to account for that guy.
Definitely. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, how much better if he plays a whole game or not, if he's 50% or not, how much better did the team automatically get just having him at least on the field for as long as they possibly can?
I think 94% better.
I
love that number.
You like that number?
I love 94% for some reason. Because the thing is, when you have a guy like Zeke out there, and me from the linebacker position, first of all, I got to worry about the run. Right? And then now, if you don't hand it off to him, that makes now those two deep safeties. You got to be able to bring some guy up, and now you can play deep with. You can throw the ball deep. So I just think that now you got the Giants first, big NFC games. Those games are like detrimental. You got to win those early. And having that guy out there makes him at least 94% better.
Every team has a natural enthusiasm for the regular season to start. But I've been fortunate enough to cover this game a long time, and I was fortunate enough to cover it when you were in a contract dispute with Dallas. And they had to come up with that money to be able to pay you. And we always talked about, man, he's the cornerstone. Jerry had mentioned it, but I knew in the locker room. You made the Dallas Cowboys go. They had some other people. They might have had more endorsements and more splash, but you were the heart and soul. What does that locker room feel like today when one of your brothers got that big payday and they come in and you're also ready to start the season? What do you think Dallas locker room is like today?
The thing is, it's like a party right now. You had the guys from training camp. He's not there. Where's our guy? And that's where you usually build that team camaraderie, right? And now for the first game, we got our guy back, the guy that wants to eat. And he's the guy that really moves the chain. So I feel like now they have everybody back. everybody's excited, they're happy, they can take a deep breath, and now get ready for that first game.
And two follow-ups on that. One is, Cris asked what it's like for the other players in the locker room. What's it like for the player? When you've played at that high level, and you've obviously been making NFL money, but you're in a contentious dispute, and then once you do actually sign the new deal, which changes you and your family's life forever, what's Zeke, there's not a lot of people that know this, what's Zeke feeling right now today, the next few hours?
He's feeling a lot of pressure. If he's that guy, if he's that captain of the team, I'm going to put everything on my back. And saying that, I don't want to be that. I hear DeMarcus on television. I'm talking to him saying, I'm not a halftime player, right? Yeah. I'm not going to play 1 or 2 quarters. I'm going to go out there. I was ready while I was in Cabo. I'm going to get the ball. I'm going to move the chains. I'm going to have an opportunity to now, get my team some wins. Because you gave me the money. I'm solidified. And I'm going to show you the reason why you gave it to me.
And then one quick follow-up on that. What is it like negotiating with Jerry Jones? We hear that he's one of the go-to owners when they're negotiating television deals. We know Jerry's got a funny way of speaking sometimes. We think of him as kind of an old time. But we've heard...
DeMarcus, boy, you know I love you.
The smartest guy in the business.
I love you, boy. You know I love you. You're always going to be a Cowboy. You know that, right?
Right.
You know that, right?
Yeah.
Every day,
But you, hold on, you just said something, though. Smartest guy in the business. And we are one of the toughest negotiators in the business. So what was Zeke and his representation going through? What's it like negotiating with Jerry?
The thing is, when you sit down at the table, the room is dark, there's a candle right here, and it's you and him talking. And you're not my guy anymore. It's like, I'm going to give you, 6 years, $90 million. Do you want to accept that or not? With no smiles, because it's all about business after that. And that's how Jerry Jones do his business, one-on-one. And I knew that once Zeke got on that plane and he was coming to the Dallas Cowboys, he's about to get signed. Because it's not about any other accolades, it's about me and you making that deal.
All right, so if Zeke is the happiest guy this morning, I would imagine Dak Prescott is probably the second happiest guy to have him back. How much better does Dak get on Sunday having Zeke in the lined up right there next to him?
And we saw last year when Zeke wasn't in the game that the offenses knew that, okay, well, and they don't have a run game, and their offense is really predicated on the play-action pass. And then all of a sudden, Zeke comes back, and the game totally changes for Dak. It takes a lot of pressure off of him. He doesn't have to now try to manipulate all kinds of plays. He can actually hand the ball off. He can go through his reads now because there's not, 2 free safeties. One guy has to come up now, almost be like a linebacker because Zeke is running the ball. So that takes a lot of pressure off of him. And I think now the guy that just took a deep breath in the locker room was Dak, because he's like, we got a 2-headed monster back, me and Zeke.
All right, so for
before it was him and Tony Pollard.
And what have they said about Tony Pollard is not Zeke Elliott. All right, so for the Cowboys, a lot of people are very high on the Philadelphia Eagles. I think I'm sitting across from 2 of them who are about as high on them as anybody. They're incredibly deep. Last year was a down year. They still made the playoffs. I know they didn't win the division. The Cowboys did. How good are the Cowboys now? How do they stack up with Philly? And best case scenario, how does this go for them this year?
When you think about the NFC East, every game is going to be a challenge. But the thing is, now you have everybody back. Just think about their young defense. They just signed Jalen, right? You got Sean Lee. You got the awesome linebacker core, but the corners are very young, but they can play really well. DeMarcus Lawrence, their pass rush is doing really well with Tyrone Crawford. So I think that I'm talking from a defensive standpoint. They are on point, but now can we gel and get everything together back with Zeke and be that team that we need to be? And with Philly, Philly has an awesome team. We know that. So the NFC is up for grabs.
Right now, the Dallas Cowboys, if I was to analyze them, my biggest concern happens to be their defensive line. Right. Now, I know you got friends on that team. I don't know if you're being 100% honest as far as your concern with their lack of depth, with guys being suspended. Is that a championship defensive line that they have in Dallas?
I wouldn't say they're a championship defensive line. I wouldn't say that. They are a great defensive line, but they do have a lot of missing pieces. But everything that's behind them, when you say there's no I in team, there is an I in team, because if I don't do my job, the team suffers, right? So the 4 guys up front they're everything. They're front 7, but they have, the 3 linebackers that are really good, and 4, corners. But the defensive line, they're a little bit shaky. And that's going to be, when you're playing against Philly, when you're playing against Washington, keep going up, the Giants, they're going to hand that ball off. And that front 7 is key to everything.
All right, I don't think it's hyperbolic to ask this. With Ezekiel Elliott, especially after a couple of weeks of him getting into it and getting his snaps and all of it, with him in there, is this a Super Bowl team?
This is a Super Bowl team if they can get into the playoffs because they've been there enough to know what it feels like to now get that extra edge into winning the championship. But the thing is I feel like it's going to come down to the beginning of the season, how they start. Zeke hasn't been there. Mm-hmm. How is the team actually going to gel at the beginning of the season because there's been so many NFC East games? It's
First 2 weeks are Giants-Washington, and that's, I mean, to the point, I think, of Zeke's leverage was if they are going to have a successful season, how critical the beginning of the season was, getting him in, even if he's not 100% for the first game of the year. But to me, at least, an enormous part about what is the Cowboys' ultimate upside is how much will Dak Prescott improve year 3 to year 4? Are you sold on Dak Prescott, and what do you think he needs to do most to evolve his game to get to the level of the guy you played with, who he replaced, who was an excellent quarterback, even though much maligned, in Tony Romo?
I think that, when you think about a quarterback, and you know as well, you can't just be a play-action quarterback. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to, do a lot of the short passes, a lot of the out routes, a lot of the crossings route, which you never liked because I tried to hit you when we were playing linebacker. But I just think that you have to be an all-around guy. One thing that he has a lot of athleticism, but if you're at quarterback, you got to be able to pass the football, not just hand it off to Zeke. And that's going to be a big thing that I want to see this season.
You mentioned Bill Parcells. What's your thoughts on Jason Garrett, who's going into this season, final year of his contract? Everyone seems to be getting extended with the Cowboys. Jason Garrett has not. What's your evaluation of him and his situation with Dallas?
I think they put him in a perfect role because now he's not calling the plays. You got John Kitna. You got, Keelan taking a lot of pressure off of him. And he actually can be a coach. He is an amazing coach when it comes to motivating. That's what a coach is supposed to do. They're supposed to delegate being in the special teams meeting, in the defensive meetings, in the offensive meetings. They keep everything together like glue. That's what his job is, and I know that's what he's going to do very well.
All right, just quickly, who's the best team in the NFC?
Best team in the NFC? I would say right now the Rams because they just signed Goff. And now they're really pumped about what they have going on. And that defense, they have everything that it takes to get them to a championship. I was going to say the Saints, but I think the Rams.
All right.
Well, tell us what brings you here today.
Oh, what brings me here today, I'm actually here with Snickers. And we're actually, giving the hungriest player and fan an opportunity to sort of win this bling here.
Oh.
And this bling right here travels throughout the season to let the hungriest player.
Wow, that's nice. Let me hold that, man.
This is big. This is big.
Oh,
you're gonna have to get
this is heavy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Giving this to the hungriest
Not hollow
player.
here, man.
No,
Yes.
that's solid gold.
And that's going to be given to a player on each team every week.
Oh, okay.
Every week.
Wow. Is Snicker trying to bite off of college football? The turnover chain?
Yes, they are.
Snickers trying to turn everyone over to Snickers. Snickers Mars.
Exactly.
This is
that is amazing.
Are you? Listen, I watched you during your career. You weren't a huge jewelry guy.
I'm not a big jewelry guy, but the contracts that we're giving out right now, somebody needs this chain. Right?
Yeah.
And not just the on-the-field stuff, but off-the-field stuff, too. So the last person, actually not the last person, but the fans get to be involved, too. And they get an opportunity to now, you go through the 16 weeks, and the person that they nominate for this chain, I don't know what the worth is, but I know it's heavy. They get to put the worth of this chain to their charity. So it's going to be this is really big.
Really
well, let me
stuff.
see that because number one charity I know is me.
You go wear it?
Yeah, let me.
My guy.
DeMarcus, thank you so much for being with us today.
Take your glasses off first.
You got to take your glasses off.
Not awkward at all.
Yeah,
That is amazing.
Back here on First Things First, Coach Eric Mangini is with us. Tripped over that one
Good to
yet
see you.
again.
Or coast.
Coast. We're going to coast through that entire opening. Breaking news this morning, according to Ian Rappaport.
Breaking
sorry,
news. Jenna
Coach.
doing Jenna stuff.
Ezekiel Elliott has agreed to a 6-year, $90 million extension with $50 million of that guaranteed. He becomes the highest-paid running back in the NFL. Zeke will report to Cowboys practice today. Coach, what's your reaction to this deal finally getting done?
Whenever things like this happen, from a coaching perspective, obviously you're happy because you've got the player. You can move on from the distractions. You can talk about your opponent as opposed to the things that are happening internally. But you also take a step back and say, if he's going to become the highest paid running back, if this deal got done the way it's presented, why did it take so long? Like, if this is where we're going to end up,
what did Jerry concede anyway?
Yeah, and we'll hear more about the specifics of the deal, and I'm sure that what's presented is the best possible look that you can have.
It's usually presented by the agent, not the team, and so it looks best for the player.
Yeah, you want to see what the real money is, what the real guarantees are, what the new money is, what the concessions were, what took so long to get to where we are right now. And that's always the coaching side of it, especially because it's not like he came in behind Todd Gurley. He came in ahead of Todd Gurley. He set new trends. Why couldn't they have set those trends 2 or 3 weeks ago so that he could have gotten the practice that everybody wants him to get? I'm sure he wanted to get, and we didn't have to be in this position where now it's a function of what do you do with him next?
I think the answer to that question is, Coach, is because the Cowboys underestimated initially his stomach to actually miss football games once they realized, oh, he will really stay in Cabo if we do not meet his demands. It would appear, now again, maybe we'll find out new details, but assuming the general strokes are accurate, $15 million a year, $50 million guaranteed, the Cowboys folded. Zeke got on his checklist of things, highest paid ever done, most guaranteed money ever by a large margin, extended security done, didn't have, like, he got everything he wanted here. Now, maybe we'll find out differently, but as it looks right now, it would, to me, appear the Cowboys thought we can hold the line. He's not actually going to miss time. He's going to get advice, man. If you don't take this offer that puts you right beneath Gurley, they can have you this year. They got you next year the 5th-year option. They can franchise tag you a couple times. And Zeke was willing to play harder ball than the Cowboys were, and it would appear because the Cowboys agreed with some of the commentary that was, man, if your Super Bowl window is right now, your Super Bowl window does not open if Ezekiel Elliott is not on the field. That's how I read it. Because I agree with you. It's one of the things I wrote down. Why didn't this get done 2 weeks ago? And Zeke would then be at least closer to a full go for week 1 than he is going to be in this situation. And I just think it's because the Cowboys thought he would soften on some of his demands rather than potentially miss time. He didn't. Today was the deadline for him to be able to play week 1, it would appear. And so it would look like they caved to a degree.
Well, caving, I'm not as concerned as that. The reason why they didn't come to agreement because the averages weren't there and the guarantees weren't there. And I'm one to say this, that Jerry realizes Ezekiel Elliott not only has been suspended once, but has been to the principal's office a couple times, and recently this summer. That's what held up the deal. Like, his overall outlook on this player and his availability could be in the future. Like, do we know what that's going to be? So he's the best running back. He's proven that over the last 3 years. But because of what happened off the field, that's the reason why they didn't come up with the best offer. That's why they had the conversations with L. Bell. Why? Because L. Bell got less than Gurley, got less in guarantees, but also he had been suspended like Zeke. Different set of circumstances, but suspension is a suspension.
And when you look at contracts, what we're seeing today, when this is dissected, is going to look radically different. And we're going to see where some of those concessions were. And maybe there is something in terms of a clause to
Voiding
protect them.
guarantees if he gets in trouble.
Yeah, you can build some of those things into the contract. It's a little bit more limited now than it has been in the past, where you could really protect the team if a player had some conduct that was detrimental or conduct that could potentially sacrifice games. It's not quite there now. But also, there's got to be some other parts to this where the Cowboys won or where the Cowboys feel like they got some concessions, because I can't imagine they just got to this point and said, all right, here, take everything.
Right.
It just doesn't work that way.
Especially since we know Jerry Jones to be such an incredibly savvy negotiator. But, you know, we talked about how much this means for Zeke and how much it means for Dak Prescott. What about for Jason Garrett, who's clearly in the hot seat going into this season? How important was it for him to have his best player on the team ready for this weekend?
Well, if anything, the seat just gets hotter. It doesn't get less hot. If he wasn't there,
then if he wasn't there, you got a built-in excuse for the reason why we're struggling. My best player's not here.
Yeah, and now at this point, not only is your best player there, but he's also really highly paid, and you better figure out.
And
now his job is to figure out, okay, what do I do with him in the short term? What do I do with him in the long term? How does he fit into the new offensive coordinator's system? How many changes are there? How much learning does he have to do to get up to speed with where things are?
Let's use one of our favorite terms over the first 2 years of the show, and it's a term you came up with, or at least I first heard from you, force multiplier. We use that term, one guy who's good enough to make other people better, almost exclusively about quarterbacks. That's the way you first brought it up, and that's one of the ways we evaluate quarterbacks. Tell me if you disagree, but you can be a force multiplier at other positions, and Zeke is the definition of that. Zeke makes Dak better, the offensive line better, Amari Cooper better. Zeke makes everyone on that offense better, not only when he touches the ball, but purely his presence out there, correct?
Correct. Now, to me, Barry Sanders was the ultimate offensive line force multiplier.
Of course.
Because he had some offensive lines that really struggled, but he made them look good, and he was able to produce at such a high level. And Zeke, to some degree, is that he's a force multiplier in the sense that if you want to stop him, you're going to have to bring that extra guy down in the box. You're going to have to deal with the running game, which should open up things for Dak, and it should also clean up looks. That's a big part of it. If you get that pre-snap look of 8 in the box where you either have cover 3 outside or you have man-to-man outside, everybody understands, especially the quarterback, where the ball needs to go and what the opportunities are, as opposed to a bunch of disguise and movement or split safeties, things like that.
There's also force multiplier as far as style. You can implement a game plan. You can say you want to be physical. You can draft big people. Bill Parcells, man, I'm about big people, Chris. He has a prototype. For every position, the prototype of size, speed, weight that he wants. If you're trying to run Dallas and what they're trying to do, you need Ezekiel Elliott. Like, you don't need a Barry Sanders because they have a good offensive line. They're trying to force their will on the opposition. It was clearly stated last year, this defense, undersized. When Ezekiel Elliott runs the ball and they dominate time of possession, when they win time of possession, when they have the ball for over 30 minutes, the team was 8-0. Like, that right there is a force multiplier. He's making the whole team better. But as far as Jason Garrett, there's more pressure on him now that he has the complement of players compared to the built-in excuse, new coordinator, new quarterback coach, Ezekiel Elliott's not here.
And Cris made a really good point in one of the earlier segments is when you sign a guy for this type of money, that offensive line, which has a lot of high draft picks, which has a lot of money invested in it, you can't pay everybody at the highest rate to, ongoing. At some point, someone's going to have to either be cut, someone's either going to have to take a pay cut, someone's going to have to pay for the money that you put into Zeke. And when that offensive line is filled with guys that maybe aren't all first rounders or first and second rounders, now you're going to really see where Zeke fits in the force multiplier equation.
And because on that note, Cowboys fans, they respond to this all the time when we talk about their offensive line changing. Well, all 3 of our guys, all 3 All-Pros are signed through 2023, and they just signed La'el Collins through 2024. That's all true. But the point that you guys are making is, for a bunch of those guys, not Collins, of course, because he just signed, the guarantee money has run out or is running out, and that is when you're in a cap crunch, you go to a player and say, hey, when we signed you, you were this level. You're now this level. We need you to take a pay cut. Or when guys with years left on their deal get cut. Because their 4 major offensive linemen, the 3 All-Pros plus Collins, are locked up for the next 4 seasons at least. That absolutely does not mean they will all be there for the next 4 seasons at least, and that is because it's not only Zeke that got paid. We think Dak's going to get paid soon. We've talked about Amari and the franchise tag and all the other money they've given out this offseason.
That's the impact. When you say what impact did all of this have, this entire holdout have on the Cowboys, that right there is the impact. So how much better did the Cowboys get now? Now that Zeke's in, they've got all their guys in. How much better is this team?
Well, really, they didn't get any better.
Thank you, Coach.
They're the same exact team.
I never evaluated the Cowboys without Zeke. We knew he was going to come.
Yeah, he was going to come. They just paid him a lot more money. And that happens oftentimes where you pay a guy a ton of money and suddenly the expectations change. He's the same guy. And the worst thing that a player can do is to try to play up to a contract.
Right.
It is the absolute kiss of death. You paid him for who he was, who he is, and you don't want him to try to be something else because it never works out in the end.
And I would be careful in the first couple of weeks of the season. Ezekiel Elliott, there's pressure on him to live up to that. He wants to live up to that for his teammates. But also in the first 2 weeks, I'm not ready for the workload that does he force himself into the lineup because of personal pressure. When you become the highest paid or one of the highest paid, man, you want to live up to that number. So the pressure, even though he has the guarantees, I know his family and everything is set for a long time, there is still internal pressure on Zeke like he's never faced before.
It's pressure on me to take a commercial break. I dropped my pen. Stick around, Coach. Coming up, now that Zeke is the highest paid running back, will he be ready to go week 1 against the Giants? All Zeke all the time. According to Ian Rappaport, Ezekiel Elliott has agreed to a 6-year, $90 million extension, Coach, with $50 million guaranteed. He becomes the highest paid running back in the NFL, and he's expected to report to practice today. All right, Coach, if you were Jason Garrett, how would you use Zeke Sunday against the Giants, knowing what he's gone through the last couple of weeks in Cabo, practicing but without contact, obviously?
Well, look, this is a really difficult decision because when you look at it historically, probably the most recent is Le'Veon Bell. And when he came back that first week, that was 2017, first week, I think he carried the ball 10 times for 3.2 yards a carry. Didn't really do much in terms of receiving. His second game was the same average, but more carries. And the question is, do you go to the pitch count, and what is that magical pitch count number? And how do you decide what that number is? Because there's not a lot of data to draw from. And Le'Veon Bell is different than Zeke. And I would imagine they want to be able to have him in the fourth quarter. So you don't want to use up all of his snaps early. And even if you just have him on the field to create an illusion of him running the ball, even if he's not going to run the ball, to try to open up things in the passing game. So to give you an exact answer, I would say, somewhere in the 20s, maybe high teens, low 20s.
Go ahead, Cris.
I would say I'm not worried about the carries. I don't get onto a pitch count. I'm more concerned about the plays. All right. Typically, NFL game, Dallas doesn't do much hurry up. They're going to run 65 to 70 plays. If I'm Ezekiel Elliott, I'm trying to play in half of those plays. Now, is that in the beginning? Because, Coach, what he's saying is a legitimate concern. You know you're going to run out of gas. An NFL game, when you start, even when I'm in the best shape, I'm going to run out of gas. Now, am I going to run out of gas 30 minutes after the game, or I'm going to run out of the gas with 30 minutes to go in the game? And Ezekiel Elliott, I would make sure that he doesn't put too much pressure on himself to try to play a full NFL game. He's not ready. And let me tell you, 90% of all the players playing this weekend are not ready to play a full NFL game. You are not ready for a 2-minute drill. At halftime and at the end of the game, you're just not in that type of shape. You're in close enough shape, but the only thing that gets you ready is playing in a series of games. At the end of this month, they'll be in a lot better shape, even the guys that have been there. So I'm making sure that I'm utilizing play action pass. I'm utilizing all the information against the Giants. I'm putting Zeke back there. I'm play faking to him. I'm throwing the ball down the field. Short yardage, goal line situation, I'm faking the Zeke, and I'm either giving the ball to other people or I'm throwing the ball, because in those situations, short yardage and goal line, he has had no practice. He has not had any reps. No one has contacted his helmet on helmet, and I'm trying to avoid certain situations like that where he can take one blow and that jeopardize his season. So I'm going to be watching as far as that goes too, Coach.
And rookies go through this all the time, is the intensity of training camp, which notches up when you go into a preseason game, which notches way up when you start the regular season. And it's as much as you try to simulate that, you can't simulate that. The first game of the season always has that added level of excitement and anxiety and all the uncertainties and unknowns that guys in the locker room are going through to get to the point where they're ready to play the game. It's a different environment than any other week in the season. So now you add the new contract, the lack of contact and practice. It's trying to figure out what's right. And maybe the approach is, hey, we're only going to play you. Our plan is to play you a limited amount, and we'll see how it goes.
But yes.
This way you take the pressure off of Zeke of thinking, oh, I only have 20 plays. You say, we're going to see how it goes.
But is that not a little dangerous as far in this regard? When you mentioned if he's highly effective, you see how effective he is, that if he is highly effective early and he's dealing with the contact well and the ball security's fine, that's one area of concern. The other area of concern with guys who've missed an entire training camp and off season is soft tissue injuries. And that's not about getting hit. That's about a hamstring tightening up. That's about you not being in the exact shape you need to be in. Even if he's being highly productive, I would imagine he's just as susceptible to a hamstring strain or the types of injuries we see from players who have missed an offseason. And that's something I imagine no one can fully predict, but you have to plan for. So what do you do as a coach if, man, against all odds, Zeke looks as good as he did at the end of last season, the first quarter of the game? How does that change your approach to how you use him the next 3 quarters?
Well, your approach don't change. That's why it was important to get him in Wednesday. We're going to see at the end of the day. You got 2 padded practices this week, typically. They might have 1 because they're coming out of training camp. I'm going to see where he is before Friday. We're going to bang on Wednesday. They're going to tackle, or they're going to thud to almost tackle on Thursday. On Friday, we're going to have passing, red zone, 2-minute. After 3 days, Ezekiel's a great player. You'll know exactly where he is, and it becomes important that the coaching staff and the training staff, that they're able to monitor him, and they go into Sunday with a good game plan. That starts today. So they'll be watching him today. There'll be a padded practice today. It becomes very important. That's why it was important for him to come back yesterday to get signed so he can get the full complement of work so that we can develop a game plan for Sunday. You can't develop a game plan today when you don't know what he's going to feel like after 3 days of practice. So you can imagine what is going to happen today. But after Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, the coaches get there, and that's when you abbreviate the game plan. You say, you know something? We're going to throw that out. I like these 5 runs to the left. I like these 3 or 4 runs to the right. That's what we're going to go with. He seems to be dealing with his hamstrings and everything. They've responded well to the conditioning we've given him. So we're going to go with, let's get him 30 to 40 reps in the game.
And one of the most challenging parts of getting back into football shape and getting used to playing again is as much as you train and someone gives you change of direction drills and you're working on those things, it's different when you have to respond to human beings, when your instincts take over. Yes. And you've got
the sudden movement.
Yeah, that cutting left and cutting right because there's a person there it's so radically different than working with a trainer or whoever's getting you in shape, because it's muscle memory, it's intensity, it's all those things that you can't simulate.
And you can't simulate someone grabbing on you, you jumping over someone in the line of scrimmage, a linebacker flash on you, and all of a sudden your eyes take you. There's a hole to the right. The things that make him great are also the things that allow you to be injured and make your body go through sudden, explosive movements that you're not ready for. Your body is not seasoned to go through that, especially early.
So if we know that, the New York Giants know that, how do you think they're game planning against Ezekiel Elliott this weekend?
Well, here's a lesson that I learned a really hard way. Randy Moss went to the Patriots, and he hadn't had a good season in Oakland the year before. He hadn't played in training camp. He hadn't in any of the games. We underestimated Randy Moss going in that game. And he hung 180 on us. And I will never ever underestimate a great player again. So the Giants need to look at Ezekiel Elliott as the threat that he is and make sure that they have a plan in place to stop him. Because if it is going well, or if it comes down to the fourth quarter, whatever those issues are, the last thing you want to do is be unprepared for a great player.
New York Football Giants, they put 7 guys in the box. They put 8 guys in the box. They put cover 2 to Amari Cooper. I ain't afraid of they tight ends. And let me see what Randall Cobb got left and Michael Gallup just in his second year. The game plan pretty simple. I got 7 guys I'm going to put here. I'm going to make it hard for him to be able to throw to Amari. We getting ready to see if Dak is worth that money that they getting ready to give him. It's not real complicated come Sunday afternoon with the Giants.
Real quick, does that change what you're talking about at all when Zeke's off the field and Tony Pollard's back there?
The game happens too fast. The game happens too fast for them. They will be sound. They won't have six people in the box because they know Dallas will manhandle them. So with that offensive line, you need a minimum of 7 people in the box with Zeke on the field, Zeke off the field. If Zeke gets hot, we're going to put an extra guy in the box.
The only other thing that you could pressure more with Zeke in, with the idea that he hasn't worked a lot with the offensive line, the protections, forced him to make mental decisions as well as physical decisions.
And as a defense, Coach Mangini is telling them, first guy, go and grab him, and the rest of us are tackling the ball because he has not practiced ball security. He has not been contacted. Let's try to create some turnovers, give ourselves a short field, give ourselves a chance to pull off the upset in week number 1.
Breaking news this morning, Ezekiel Elliott has signed his extension with the Dallas Cowboys.
Coach Mangini knows football.
Coach, we'll see you a little bit later in the show. Coming up, are the Cowboys Super Bowl contenders now? That's next on First Things First. Much more on Zeke in a minute, but we've got a few other stories to start your morning. Jared Goff and the Rams have agreed on a 4-year, $134 million contract extension with a record-setting $110 million guaranteed. See, what'd you make of the Rams' investment in Goff?
I'm happy. He was the first pick in the draft. They've decided that not only the coach, the general manager, Les Snead, we're all moving in the same direction. 2 years ago, gave Todd Gurley the extension. Last year, got Aaron Donald done. And now they got their cornerstone, their quarterback. As far as I'm confident that Jared Goff continues to improve and gets the Rams back into the playoffs for the 3rd straight year.
It was curious when the GM, the coach, as Cris mentioned, the best player on offense and defense, all had extensions, and the quarterback did not, despite being the #1 pick of the draft. And their commentary surrounding him made it seem like this was not coming. This obviously was coming, and Jared Goff gets the most guaranteed money ever. I'm curious how they're going to look at him a few years from now. Right now, they look at what he's done since McVay's been there, and they pay him.
I know Peter King, he sat down, spent a lot of times with the Rams this offseason, and Sean McVay, part of that commentary was challenging him to be even better, take more chances to improve his game.
All right, moving on. Melvin Gordon is in the middle of a holdout, and with trade rumors swirling, recent reports say the Chargers have told at least one team that the price for Gordon is a 1st and a 5th-round pick. Nick, is he worth it?
I don't think he is. I think that Melvin Gordon overplayed his hand in the holdout and would appear now the Charger. It's tough for the Chargers to tell Melvin Gordon, you're not worth an extension, and then tell the rest of the league, oh, you can only have him for a 1st and a 5th.
Right.
One of those things has to not be true. When he held out to begin with, I thought he was overstating his value. I think the Chargers are now being a little blustery, overstating his value to the league.
The Chargers are doing the right thing. They're sending the message to their locker room, you're not going to hold out on us, and we're not going to crumble to the pressure. Also, we like the player. That's the reason why you asked for a 1st and a 5th. When you want something, but you want to do it, I told you when you was trying to negotiate that in the radio, Nick, offer them something you think they won't do. And what they do? Oh, they came up with the bread. All right? So ultimately, they like the player. They like the price tag. But they don't want to extend him for more than a year at that price tag. So the Chargers are right in doing exactly what they're doing. Phillip Rivers doesn't have a contract after this year. Why should Melvin Gordon? He's not as good a player.
Cris Carter gives truly excellent contract negotiating advice. He is truly awful at keeping that advice confidential.
Ain't no confidence. Hey, listen, if they want to have you on the radio, I'll loan you out to them. It's going to cost this, bro. Okay?
That's exactly what happened.
I'm trying to show you how to make money, man. That's something I do know about.
And our breaking news this morning, Ezekiel Elliott is officially back, agreeing to a 6-year, $90 million extension with $50 million guaranteed. Zeke now becoming the highest-paid running back in the NFL, exactly what Zeke wanted. He's expected to report to practice today. Nick, with Zeke back for Week 1, are the Cowboys Super Bowl contenders?
Barely. But yeah, listen, there's 10 teams in the NFC I think you can make the case for. Now, unfortunately, of those 10, 4 of them ain't even going to make the tournament. Now, right now, I have the Cowboys among those 4, not even making the tournament. But they are a Carson Wentz injury away from being the overwhelming favorites in that division. We have seen their ability when they don't have a great start to a season or where they do have a really rough stretch of a season to rally. They won 7 of 8 last year, I guess 8 of 9 if you include the playoff game before they lost to the Rams in the postseason. So I can't just dismiss them. Even though I have questions about the quarterback, even though I have some questions about the head coach, and I think everyone has questions about Kellen Moore, even if they're good questions, he is an unknown as offensive coordinator in this league. Because of the conference they're in, I think that the deck is stacked against them. Philly, Dallas, Chicago, Green Bay, Minnesota, New Orleans, Carolina, Atlanta, Rams, Seahawks. Even if you think, the Seahawks are going to take a big step back and Carolina camps are, okay, now we're down to 8.
Right.
You still only have 6 teams that make it. And what I am confident in is this. I do not think this Cowboys team can make it to the Super Bowl through the route of a wild card team. I do not think they can win 3 consecutive road games against good opponents. So are they a Super Bowl contender? The first part of that is, can they win the division? If Carson plays a full 16 games, I don't think they can, but Carson's got to play a full 16 games first.
I think Philadelphia has a better team. I do think Dallas can win their division. I do think that they are a playoff team. And the reason why, because they got a very unique style. There's no other team in the NFL that plays football the way they play football. And if they get into the turnip, the unique style, as we saw last year, New England played Dallas Cowboys football and won the Super Bowl. So if Dallas is able to get into the playoffs and you get these teams, Chargers, they didn't have a linebacker over 245 pounds. You let Dallas get into the tournament and you not have a defense
like the
that takes
Falcons against them.
If you put the wrong makeup against this team, because that's why they got a puncher's chance. There's one style like them. This is not Jacksonville. Jacksonville say they want to run the ball. They don't run the ball effectively. They can't throw the ball. We're not afraid of their personnel at all, and their offensive line is not great. So when you have the punching style that the Dallas Cowboys, where we can immediately, in a game that takes 60 minutes to play, we can eat up 35 minutes of the clock, and that young defense running around creating turnovers. Yes, the Dallas Cowboys in the right circle, if this defensive front comes together, yes, they can compete for a Super Bowl 2019.
So 2 quick points. One is, and I didn't realize this until Dusty told me this morning, since Zeke's been on the Cowboys, when he's played, they've never lost to Philadelphia. They're 4-0 with him against Philadelphia, and he hits them for about 115 rushing yards, 115 yards per game. So they've been very successful when Zeke's been out there against the Eagles. The other point is, much like when we just talked about the Jared Goff contract, it doesn't so much matter what I think of him. The people in charge of the Rams think he's great. They think he's going to be great if he's not already. Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones have made it very clear. Their answer to this question is unequivocally yes. They had, because they finally were out of salary cap hell of dead money and bad contracts this offseason, they had the opportunity to remake their team a bit. They had the opportunity to make major changes personnel-wise. They did not do that. They decided the money we have, the money that we've saved up, we are going to use it to extend our own guys. We're going to pay Zeke early, evidently, even if their hand was forced. They paid Lyle Collins early. They paid Jalen Smith early. We believe they're going to pay Dak Prescott here in the next few days, most likely. They decided they're not going to be big players in free agency. I understand they got Randall Cobb and Robert Quinn, but those are mid-tier free agents. They believe in Dallas. The team they were the second half of last year is the team they will be this year, just with a quarterback a year better, Amari with a full offseason, and potentially better play calling. So they think the answer is yes. A lot of that is a bet on Dak Prescott that I'm not willing to make. But in Dallas, their actions have spoken. They think the team that lost to the Rams last year, for all intents and purposes, plus the addition of Travis Frederick, which shouldn't be forgotten, is a Super Bowl contending team.
While we were going through this holdout and this negotiation, one of the reports we discussed was that maybe the Cowboys were going to go in a different direction and not be so Zeke-centric and not rely so heavily on that running game. Pay Dak, see what he can do with Amari Cooper. But they're clearly not going to do that. Why don't more teams run the style of offense that the Cowboys do if it is so successful for them? Is it a personnel issue?
Well, for one, a number of years ago, about 8-10 years ago, we had a lack of quality young quarterbacks. And now what we have in the NFL, we have a lack of young offensive linemen coming from college football. The training's not great. So how do you put together a collection of young, talented? How are you going to be drafting that high that you can get that many? And your scouting department's got to get it right. So Dallas has done a good job as far as scouting. And then Tony Romo got injured. All right. And that's how they're able to switch out their quarterback from a guy that not a high draft pick. And Ezekiel Elliott was waiting that year after outstanding career at Ohio State. They decided they were in the top 5. Dallas hadn't been in the top 5 in so long. Zeke ended up being right there for them. The offensive line was already ready-made. That's the reason why. College football is not sending us a bunch of developed offensive linemen. And how can you have the timing of, I'm in the top 5, I get a transcendent talent, and I already have the offensive line ready, and I got a young quarterback who's not ready to throw the ball 40 times.
I totally agree. It's a personnel issue. Why don't more teams do it? Well, most teams don't have 3 first-round picks on the offensive line. Not only first-round picks, but first-round picks that all panned out. Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, Travis Frederick all panned out. They got another offensive lineman that was going to be a first-round pick, had a draft day fall through no fault of his own in Lyle Collins. So that's a first-round pick, quality player as a 4th offensive lineman. And then a running back who went the highest any running back had gone in the draft in years until Saquon trumped him a couple years later. It was the perfect storm for a team to run this style. If you've got arguably the best running back in the league, arguably the most decorated offensive line in the league, you'd be dumb, almost no matter who your quarterback is, to be like, we're just going to throw it 50 times. If you're going to do that, then you don't take Zeke at number 4. You don't put such a high priority on big mauling offensive line.
And with the new collective bargaining agreement, you can't practice. There's less padded practices. So developing that, it's like developing a jump shot. Ben Simmons, you're going to develop an offensive line, get to the gym. You got to develop it on the field, and you don't have enough practices being physical to do it.
All right, we will have much more on this coming up. The Cowboys made it official at 7:36 this morning, not a minute later, tweeting the post you've all been waiting for. Ezekiel Elliott agrees to new deal on contract extension. Bam, there it is. We got Zeke.
There it is. And the team usually doesn't make it official as quickly as they did, which leads you to believe when you saw the reports yesterday, people late last night were saying, hearing 6 years, $90 million, ends up being 6 years, $90 million. They were at the finish line last night, maybe just waiting to sign the contracts
the team wants to make sure that the contract is actually signed before they make an announcement, and ideally he's passed the physical. You'd hate to have to roll it back.
Well, reports are he will be at practice today. Game plan goes in, and we'll see what Sunday looks like against the Giants. All right, sticking with the Cowboys and what Zeke's new deal means for Dak Prescott. The duo came into the league together back in 2016, and after much doubt the last couple of months, they'll be together on the practice field today and together at Jerry World as the Cowboys host the Giants on Sunday. Coach, start with you. How does Zeke's return impact the quarterback, Dak Prescott?
I don't think it's great for him from a contract standpoint, in the sense that if he could have gone through these first couple games without Zeke and done really well and shown that, hey, I can carry this team without him. Now, when Zeke comes back, everything that Dak does is going to have an asterisk. Everything is going to be, well, of course he can do that because they have to deal with the running game. Of course he can do that because they have to game plan for Zeke. So from that standpoint, I think it hurts him. From a overall performance standpoint, in terms of what it opens up for him, it's incredible because it does simplify things, or should simplify things in the passing game, because they have to stop Zeke first.
Well, Coach, how much does your evaluation of that change if Dak signs his new deal Friday or Saturday? Because I don't think Dak's going to play in a regular season NFL game until he has a new deal. I think the risk would be so enormous for him personally, for a guy who's a 4th-round pick who hasn't been paid.
Wait, you think he's going to hold out if he doesn't have a deal by Friday?
No. I think that they've clearly made him offers, and that he is going to accept their last best offer Saturday night. No, I don't think he's going to hold out at all. I just think he's going to be under a long-term contract before Sunday's game is played. If that ends up being the case, does that change your evaluation at all on how Zeke's deal affects Dak?
Yeah, from a performance standpoint, it helps. Obviously, having Zeke there is going to help Dak significantly because of all the things that he brings. From a contract standpoint, if it doesn't get done Saturday night, and maybe you have some inside info that nobody else
does. Well, no,
does.
it's not inside info as much as, to me, it's just I try to often consider the most logical course of action. And if you're a guy who's made around $4 million in your career, football's an incredibly dangerous game, and you have a contract offer in front of you where that has, call it $85 million guaranteed dollars, are you going to run the risk that those guaranteed dollars go to zero because you want to get them to 90 or 95? I wouldn't do that. I don't think he's going to do that.
Well, I mean, it's not you, but Dak has already said that he was comfortable playing out this season. He said that earlier in training camp. So I'm not worried about the contract because I'm going to stop evaluating guys on how much money they make. All right? I'm going to evaluate Dak on the 9 games that he played with Amari Cooper. They went out and got Randall Cobb and Ezekiel Elliott. So what am I expecting? I'm expecting that quarterback to improve drastically. I believe there's 2 players undervalued in the NFL right now, more so than others. And both of them play quarterback, both of them in the state of Texas. Deshaun Watson, as a Houston Texans quarterback, I believe he's underrated, and I believe Dak Prescott is underrated because a lot of people can't quantify what great leadership is. And Dak Prescott, I'm not trying to have Patty Mahomes. And Patty Mahomes, from what I hear with Andy Reid and other guys there, he's a phenomenal leader. For what Dak is doing for the Dallas Cowboys, with all the eyeballs, with all the optics, with everything on him, he's a phenomenal leader. And that will make you be compensated at a high level. I believe his passing will improve like other guys who weren't great passers when they came into the league. It is developed. We knew him coming out of Mississippi State. He wasn't a finished product. Wasn't like he was throwing the ball 50 times a game. They was running some run and shoot. No, he is a quality human being who's leading one of the most popular franchises. He's a grown man in that locker room. People really, really respect him. And I'm not going to change my expectations just because his salary went up. All the quarterback salaries are going up. Can he lead his team? Can he get his team into the playoffs? Can he win a playoff game? Can they win the Super Bowl? And I believe all those things are true with Dak Prescott, with this new talent that he has on the offense. That offensive line will give him the time to dissect the defense. So I believe he's underrated as a quarterback.
And no matter what the dollars land on, but to be clear, you agree, right, that he's going to sign before week 1? That more likely than not?
From a practical standpoint, it seems like he would sign. But I listened to the players. He said he was comfortable playing out this year. So why wouldn't I listen to him? Yeah, most quarterbacks in this situation, but Dak's not normal. He has an unusual upbringing. He lost his mom earlier in his life. Like, people think about business different. So you can't always go on what you would do because we don't have the security. We haven't been in that position. Dak Prescott went on the record and said, I'm comfortable playing it out. I'm comfortable rolling the dice the same way Joe Flacco did, and Joe Flacco got paid, and other guys that have bet on themselves to get paid.
And if he believes in himself and he thinks that he is the player that deserves that contract, betting on himself is a great situation. And betting on himself with the talented players that he's got around him now could pay off in a big way. He's looking at this other extension. He realizes the squeaky wheel gets the...
Agreed, but squeaky wheel gets the grease. But to use another colloquialism, pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. And there's an element of how much is enough and how much...
Well, for one, we don't know the exact dollars.
No, of course.
We don't know the structure of it. We don't know if he's turning down a great deal. I do know as a Dallas Cowboys quarterback, I guarantee he can make about $8 to $10 million off the field that would help supplement why I'm waiting on my new contract. So he's in a position that a lot of quarterbacks, they're not in. Because I can make this bread over here and not have to worry about the contract and believing in my ability going forward.
But I also think the Dak Prescott contract negotiation got a lot simpler now that Jared Goff's is done. Because I think you can say with Jared Goff, same draft class, by the way, same amount of time in the league, okay, a guy whose numbers are better than yours, availability is the same as yours, and who has been to a Super Bowl, he got this. So now all of a sudden, instead of just having a floor, which I'm sure Dak's people were looking at Carson Wentz's deal as the floor, because Wentz has been hurt, Wentz has not played in the playoffs. You now have a ceiling, and those numbers are not that different. It's $32 million and $33.5 million. The guaranteed numbers appear to be different. We'll see what the real details are. To me, it would be shocking if Sunday rolls around and Dak does not have a deal done.
But based off of what you're saying, there's no reason for them to go to either one of those deals if he's going to sign it on Saturday night anyways. Like, why would they go up in dollars if at the end of the day?
I don't know how far up they would have to go, Coach. I think they've already presented him an offer that is over $30 million a year. The reports are an offer that's over $75 million guaranteed. So I think.
But what's the difference between signing it on Wednesday or signing it on Saturday? Like, what's the difference?
Between signing it today and Saturday, not much at all.
It makes a huge difference. I would call that bad leadership. Because the night before the opening of the season, when they make you a contract offer that they've been milking for the last 6 weeks, because Jerry told us, I got good offers out there to all parties. We saw Jalen, man, he rushed to the table. Let me get mine. Amari said, I'm cool. Amari's making a lot of money and willing to move on with the franchise tag. So we have to take all that into consideration.
But what he did learn from this last negotiation is Jerry will say one thing, and we're not going to reset the market. And then the market gets reset. So Dak may be sitting back going, okay, this is where they are now, but we can maybe push them to somewhere else. Now, all that being said, there is going to be an asterisk when you have Amari Cooper, when you have Ezekiel Elliott. How much of it is you and how much of it is that really good offensive line and those other core
Well, let me tell you, Coach,
players?
you can put an asterisk on my whole career. I want to play with good freaking players. I don't care. You can call me a force multiplier. You can call me I want to play with good players because we know how hard it's been on Tom Brady when they don't have the skilled guys. Dak needs a supporting cast. 99% of all the players I've ever met never played this game, and only 22,000 have ever played it. 99% of us, we need a supporting cast. We need a playground to be able to play. We need rules to be able to play by, and we need people to be able to officiate that. So for me, I don't put marks on play. Oh, he needs a wide receiver. Well, he responded with Amari Cooper, 8-3, 70% passing rating of over 100. He responded. Good players need good players around them, Coach.
And I agree with you. You want to surround them with as many good players as you can, but from a contract negotiation standpoint,
yeah, that makes sense.
They take a step back and say, okay, we got you all these good players. They cost a lot of money, and unfortunately, we don't have as much for you, and that's where it starts getting a little bit hazy.
Although
He's going to take their best offer.
Jerry said early on they were most likely going to sign two of the big three between Amari, Zeke, and Dak.
Amari seems to have taken a step back.
Amari seems to be fine again with the tag.
Dak's going to get his deal.
Amari still got money from Alabama, man. We cool.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.